The Sunbelt is absolutely in correction from a housing standpoint, but the data is showing that there's still many people migrating to Florida, and the Sunbelt area. So what is going on? Why is this happening? Why are we seeing builders slash prices and inventory stack at such a rapid rate? Does all this data actually make sense? Let's dig into what is really going on in the Sun Belt so you can prepare you and your family if you're thinking about buying or selling in some of these states. You have the full information to make an informed decision on what's going on. So number one is migration. So this is a report that came out from U-Haul that shows that a lot of people are migrating from these northern states in California, these high cost areas, to low cost areas in the Sun Belt. Well, this migration happened over the last few years. We actually had 5 years of demand practically happened within 2 years that drove prices up massively. While U-Haul's most recently report also shows that one-way moves from renting a U-Haul truck from one area going the other way still shows that the Sunbelt area benefited last year in 2025. But why would that be happening and prices still be falling? So here's what they don't show you is that this is not actual net migration. So net migration means that they're actually moving here, they're forming a household, they're buying some real estate. Just because somebody rents a U-Haul and moves to Florida or to the Sunbelt state does not mean that they are going to be making a real estate transaction. A lot of that, the criticism is that this could be used for business. So the main criticism is it tracks behavior, but does not mean it's a formal migration event or an event has occurred. It just measures one-way truck rentals. There's other data sources that I think are way more valuable. Look at this. This is from 2025 U-Haul report for Florida. It's the number 2 growth state rank. In migration is 50%, out migration is 49%. And it doesn't show also how much migration has declined over the last few years because you want to look at what the actual net migration, not just is what's the one way coming in, but how many are actually going out as well. So it is a little bit misleading. And frankly, migration across the board, across the United States, has actually fallen about 30% over the last few years, partly because of this lock-in effect. We had all these people go out there and run with cheap money to go buy their house, refinance their house. Now that they have their house in place, their payment in place, they're staying put for longer in their house. And the years that it takes for them to move away from their house is actually extending longer and longer because of this effect of having zero interest rate policy for so long. So when we actually look at the real domestic net migration numbers, this chart is way more helpful. We find, at least for Florida, that net migration has dropped all the way from 310,000 migrants during the peak years all the way down to 22,000, like barely net zero, like very close. Migration is down 93% from the peak, which is a huge problem. Secondly, for Florida, international immigration is a huge issue because we had all these buyers that would come from abroad, they would bring cash, they'd go purchase a house. That international immigration is down 70%. So when you put the two together, you have all these people that were coming in during these boom years, buying up all this real estate, jacking up prices, and now we don't have that demand that is very wealthy demand coming to the area, and it's impacting every aspect of what is going on in the housing market for the Sun Belt and for Florida. This is causing housing to slow in price. You're seeing the inventory stack, and you're creating a negative equity rate because you're seeing prices come down from the peaks in 2022, especially here in Florida. You can see a lot of the major cities now have a negative equity rate. You can see the same thing in most of these Sunbelt areas. And this is a huge deal because these folks are now underwater. We're starting to see short sales shoot up. We're starting to see foreclosures move up in just a few years. And that is very rare for that to actually happen. I actually thought this would take a little bit more time to happen, but when you have demand be the weakest it's ever been since the great financial crisis, back to back with the most positive demand that we've ever seen in history, you can start to see that people's sentiment changes very, very quickly, and that is causing the new construction builders to absolutely freak out. You talk to a builder today, you talk about the cost to hold the home, you talk about the interest rates, and they are giving out massive incentives to just move their product and get their cash back out of these products. So new construction is stacking up due to the lack of this migration that these builders thought was going to be there. They thought that the demand from 2020 to 2022 would continue for a very long period of time. And while we are still getting migration to Florida, it's just not at the levels that they were expecting. And that is causing builders to have this inventory stack so high that this is new one family houses for sale in the southern census region, according to Fred. Okay, this is really important. We are beyond the 2006 bubble for the amount of new construction inventory for sale. This is causing the builders to slash their prices. If you want to reach out to me, you're going through new construction, you're looking to buy in the Sunbelt areas, reach out to me. You can negotiate with the sellers. My contact information is below. If you are going to go buy new construction, you need to be very careful. You need a very savvy agent who knows how to negotiate both the incentives, the terms, and the price of the house. You want to go after all three. And I'm really excited because I had somebody reach out to me. He said, "Hey, I'm in Tampa. I watch your videos. I saw that there was this glut of supply of apartments for rent. And I actually was able to negotiate my rent from 2,000 to 900 because I watched one of your videos." I love hearing those stories. Please drop a comment. If something here helped you, you learned something from this, let us know. But this is something you need to take away. If you're going after new construction, reach out. Don't be afraid. I answer all my emails. If I don't know the answer, I'll get you over to the right person who will know the answer. I don't expect anything in return. I'm just getting the word out. Now is the time to negotiate with these folks. Now, due to these incentives, we're still seeing new sales do very well relative to existing sales, right? Because existing sale, you're gonna have to have a 6% plus interest rate in a lot of cases. For new construction, they're buying down your rates all the way in the threes. And so that's why new sales are outperforming existing sales. The next wave of buyers also prefer new construction. They want a house that nobody else has lived in. They want all the new amenities. They want all the new appliances. They like the feel of having a new house. I personally don't like a lot of the houses that they're building. They're building them with zero lot lines. They're squeezing them in. There's stick builds that are slapped up, but they are basically buyers are distracted by shiny objects. They see the stainless steel, they see the beautiful granite. They like the layout a little bit, but they have a tiny little backyard and they're right there next to their neighbor. And they're selling for record high prices, but those prices are coming down. We saw in 2022, Lennar's properties were around 500,000. Now they're down to 400, 385. So the prices are coming down on these new construction. For you not to get burned by it, you need to negotiate. But look, the existing sales and the new sales tend to trend together over time. And now we're seeing this massive gap, and that is due to the incentives that the builders are giving to buyers to get them to move inventory. What's interesting is this chart that also came up talking about rents versus permits across metro areas. You can see the areas that there was tons of construction, the prices get cheaper. Now, to many people, this is obvious. Where you build, there's going to be much less of price because you just have more supply. This chart basically shares that sentiment, right? There's certain areas that are extremely difficult to build. There's the NIMBY folks out there, not in my backyard. And then there's the areas where the builders just went crazy because it's so easy to build and they expected this massive migration to continue over a period of time, right? This Austin, Raleigh, Nashville, Jacksonville, Orlando, Charlotte, right? These Sunbelt areas that just were complete speculative markets. They built like crazy to try to capture that demand, and now they overbuilt those areas. And now we're starting to see the market rents in those areas come down, both for multifamily and for single family homes, which is great. So just a lesson for those of you out there, you want your prices to come down in your area, just build more supply. It's not rocket science, guys. But because we had so much construction, because the affordability crisis is here and it's so hard to buy a house at today's rates and today's prices, we're now seeing that there's 44% more home sellers than buyers. This is one of the widest gaps on records. 44% more home sellers than buyers, and the gap is widening practically every single month. I expect this to continue to happen as demand stays pretty soft, although I'll tell you at the end of this video, one bright spot that I do see for the market that is exciting and is causing more transactions to occur recently. So hang on to hear what that is. But ultimately, when we had this massive amount of increase in price and the wages didn't keep up, it caused this discrepancy in this discrepancy will converge over time, right? So the fact that you need $110,000 of income to be able to purchase a house, but you're only making 85,000, that gap will compress, and it will compress because prices will come down. So if migration's not occurring, you need the locals to catch up, you need the wages to catch up, and that does take years for it to stabilize. So I do expect prices to continue to come down in the Sunbelt markets this year, and I actually believe that the entire United States, when you average it out, even across those areas where we had the NIMBY areas, I do think that when we average it all out, we will be negative for the year for housing prices, and that'll show up in inflation. Shelter costs will come down, and it'll show that inflation is dropping, and that might give some incentive to the Federal Reserve to drop interest rates, for example, especially if we see a lot of job loss, which we've been seeing recently. But certain states are getting hit first. Obviously, Florida and Texas are getting hit. Areas of California, we're seeing Colorado, Georgia as well, are seeing the steepest home price declines across the board. We expect this will start in the Sun Belt, but will expand over time just because the affordability crisis is very real. And there's other threats to what's happening in the housing market, like the job situation. And a lot of the speculation that has happened over the last few years is starting to come full circle with the distress, especially in the commercial space. And we think that extend and pretend will eventually catch up with the market. Florida is very, very unique because it's an epicenter and it usually moves first. It is the top state with the highest foreclosure rate. We're seeing this in South Florida right now. South Carolina, Nevada, Illinois, New Jersey, Ohio are other ones. We expect Florida to continue moving up with the number of foreclosures that come through. We expect Q2, Q3 will show a significant increase. And by the way, we're seeing short sales happen left and right. Every single week, I'm getting multiple calls on short sales. If you have a house that is underwater and you need a short sale, reach out to me. We have specialists here in Florida that can get you taken care of. Only about 30% of short sales actually go to sell. We have folks that we know that can have an 80% success ratio with short sales. It's all they do and what they specialize on. So if you need help, reach out to me. My contact information is below and in my profile. But Florida has the higher investor share, has more second home exposure. There's some people who have 4 or 5 homes here, actually. We have higher insurance rates, higher HOA costs, heavier reliance on migration, right? So we need that net migration, and we have more rate sensitivity because of the high investor share. So we are very, very dependent on how the market is going. And I think one of the main things that's keeping this market going, honestly, because the age of the median home buyer is around 61 years old, is the stock market being high. I think there's a lot of people who are sitting on a lot of equity in their house. They're also sitting on a lot of equity in the stock market, and the stock market is keeping everything up and allowing people to continue to transact in that specific age group and demographic. And that is part of the reason why we're seeing still some strength here in Florida in certain pockets. There's certain pockets that are just getting crushed. Like, for example, townhouses and condos, I'm sorry. Across the board, I'm not seeing any bright spots for what's going on there. And here's the one positive thing that I see happening that just happened this week. You know, the mortgage rates dropped to 5.99. Just a year ago, it was over 7%. This increases buyers' purchasing power by about 10%, brings about 1.5 million buyers back into the market. So this is great if you're a marginal buyer and you're focused on payment. I don't like it if you're buying at record high prices with this rate, because I think you're still going to get burned, because I think prices will continue to come down. So again, you need to negotiate as hard as you possibly can, make the terms as strong as possible for you and your family, so that way you don't get caught catching a falling knife. And I think part of the issue is also with this is that part of the reason why rates are dropping are because the employment market is not doing very well. So I don't think it's falling for the right reasons. And I think that can be a problem that shows up later. Obviously, if you don't have a job, you can't buy a house. I also think there's concerns with AI taking away a lot of these white collar jobs. So look, I think it's really important for you to be laser focused on the area and negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. You have the power as the buyer in this market today. So I'd love to hear from you. Will migration patterns get worse or better for the Sunbelt? Do you think that the migration will continue? Is it possible that the Sunbelt could actually have negative net migration. And I'd love to hear from where you're at. Where are you located? What are you seeing on the ground? I love hearing from people in the comments. Your comments give me the next idea for the next video, the details, the research that goes into this, about 3 to 4 hours per day. As always, you can follow me on X and follow me at time at John Brooks. And you can also go to my Substack, and anytime a video comes out, you'll be notified and get more information in that Substack, things I can't talk about here on YouTube. So go ahead and subscribe below. Thanks so much for following, and I'll see you next week.